fell from my chair. Right, hello again. It's still Wednesday the 2nd of November, and we shall crack on with the next B. It's not a Ben this time. It's a B for Braeval, which is this sample, which was very kindly donated by Chris and Lindsay Cook. Thank you very much, you two. And Braeval is difficult to get hold of. The distillery itself is here, and when it was first launched in 1973/4, it kind of crossed over into 1974. It was originally called Braes of Glenlivet, Braes, and Bray is a Scottish word for hillside. So Glenlivet is the valley of the River Livet, and Braes of Glenlivet was essentially a hillside in the valley of the River Livet, and it's very close to the Glenlivet distillery itself, which is why it then became known as Braeval, because Seagram's set up this distillery. They also owned Glenlivet at the time, and it was just confusing matters, and it was like, we need to distance this distillery from the main Glenlivet, the one that everybody knows. So Seagram's built this in 73/74, essentially for Chivas, essentially to provide stock of single malt whisky for Chivas blends, and that's all it was. It was purpose built purely almost as a whisky factory, to the point where it was designed and built for maximum efficiency, minimum staff. It was almost to the point where one man could operate the entire distillery by himself. In 1974, it then became that one man literally could, because they, not 1974, 1980, when was it? 1997. I wasn't even close the second time. 1997, it became possible for one man to operate the distillery from one single room, because they brought in an entirely computerized system that ran everything. They had no malting floors. It was literally pour it in one end and it will come out the other, and then it goes into a tanker and gets shipped off to be matured in casks somewhere else. That literally it was bring the mash in one end, pour it in there, it will run off, that will run out of there, and one man just goes click on a computer and it's done. Dead simple, dead cost effective, no messing. So because it was purely for Chivas, very, very hard to find, because this is a bit like, a sister distillery is Alta Vane. Again, distillery made for blends around the same time, and literally, we don't need to sell this as a single malt, because we make so much money and there's so much demand for the blended whiskies that, and a lot of Alta Vane went into Chivas Regal. Braeval tended to go to other blended whiskies as well, not necessarily Seagram's or Pernod Ricard, who bought them in when they took over Seagram's, or part of Seagram's estate in 2000, 2001. This distillery came under their wing. Now, they actually mothballed it in 2002 because it was already overproducing for what they needed. But in 2008, Chivas, kind of the part of Pernod Ricard that was Chivas, decided that they wanted to reopen some of the distilleries that had been closed, kind of like lost distilleries, as it were, of which this was one. So this actually in, I think it was August, maybe October of 2008, actually recommenced production. So it's apparently the highest distillery in Scotland, so they say, or at least that was when I read it, unless a new distillery's come out that's even higher. In terms of sea level, it's about 350 metres above sea level. There is claims that Dalwhinnie is the highest as well. It seems to be feet and inches pretty much as to whether one is over. It's almost too close to call, so it's one of those two. It shares its water source actually with Aberfeldy, which is not a Speyside distillery. It's considered a Highland distillery, because this is kind of on the border of like the Speyside region, and the water source kind of travels to where Aberfeldy is as well. It's normally bourbon matured, but this particular one, now this I've just spoken to Chris about an hour ago. Messaged each other, because this is a 12-year-old old malt cask. It's a sample from an old malt cask bottling. Now, old malt cask was a range, or still is, in fact, a range of bottlings from Douglas Lang. And Douglas Lang, fantastic independent bottler. Their old malt cask range is utterly superb. It's more often than not single cask. It may be 2 casks, something like that, but it's a limited number of bottlings. Nearly always bottled at 50%, no colouring, none of that nonsense. And they pick really, really well. Now, I sent Chris a message to say, have you got a picture of the bottle and how much did you pay for it? Because I can't find it. I can find a 14-year-old old malt cask, and I can find a 12-year-old of their Provenance range, but it's not this particular one. Now, he says it was a sample bottle that the whisky shop in York had, and he managed to pinch some of it from them. But the whisky shop were getting sample bottlings from Douglas Lang. I'm assuming they still have, but they had a very, very good relationship with them, and were basically getting sample bottles from Douglas Lang of kind of like, what do you guys think of this, and give your customers some of that and get some feedback, and this is what we're bringing out, so please do give. So I'm not sure whether and Chris isn't sure either, whether this was actually one that ended up being for sale, and I can't find it. I can't find this particular old malt cask, sherry butt, apparently, because that's what Chris has written on his, this is a jam label he's put on here, on a soap bottle, I think. I hope he washed it out. So I'm not even sure whether this is even one for sale, or if it is, whether it's still available or not. But the old malt cask range, I mean, it depends on the distillery, the age. I mean, the price range, it wasn't like they were all 40 quid. But I would guess 12-year-old Braeval, 50 quid, maybe 60, I don't know. But if anybody does know, if anybody's come across this before, please do let me know. What I'm going to do is put a picture up of the Braeval that I found that is an old malt cask bottling, so you can see at least what the packaging looks like. Maybe not necessarily this bottle. That's about as good as I can give you, I'm afraid. But always interesting to try distilleries that you can't necessarily get. There is no official bottling. It's not even like Diageo with the Benrinnes that we had yesterday, where the Flora and Fauna range was a kind of semi-official bottling. It was from Diageo. It was a range. One place I did read, I think it was Malt Madness, said if you find somewhere like eBay or a trader that's selling an official bottling of Braeval Glenlivet, it's a fake, because none was ever released officially. So, nice colouring on it, very kind of golden syrup type colour. Really, really nice bright gold on that. First impressions were not great. First impressions were slightly toilety, kind of like a public toilets. But that's mellowed out a bit and it's got a little bit better. But my first impression was public toilets that had been cleaned recently. So it's that slight, it's not even antiseptic, but it's, like the yellow cakes that you get in urinals, that sort of thing. And it's sort of clean and dirty at the same time, if that makes sense. But it's sort of mellowed out. It's become a bit sweeter and it's almost pear. It's very much a pear kind of... Yeah, fresh pears as well, not even poached pears. There's not the sweetness of poached pears. This is kind of fresh, ripe pear. Much prefer pear to toilets. Let's go with the pear, shall we? Yeah. There is a definite freshness to it though. It's weird. It's a fresh cleanliness to it. It's odd. It's kind of a cleaning solution. But it's not antiseptic and it's not acrid and it's not acetone. It's odd. It's a really odd nose. But it's kind of growing on me because I'm getting more pear rather than toilets, and I'll go that way if that's okay. Whoa. Kind of came back, not back up, but kind of came back up the back of my nose in terms of, it was like, no, I haven't finished with you yet. You can have this flavour as well. Silky mouthfeel. Really rich, almost syrupy mouthfeel to it. And pear does come through, very much so. And ripe, fresh, juicy pear comes through. There's a nice honey note to it as well. It's not malty, this is honey. So this is honey and pears and pastry. It's very, very pleasant indeed. But what I got on the finish was I swallowed, and then all of a sudden, kind of up the back of my nose, I got this really intense, and it wasn't mint, but it was a really intense freshness that was like really cleared my nose out, but it wasn't an alcoholic burn. it was quite unusual. See if I can pick it up again. Yeah. What the hell's that? It's slightly nutty as well, kind of right on the finish, and it's a bit like pistachios. You know, pistachios have got that kind of slight sweetness to them, but it's a kind of oily sweetness to a pistachio. It's very much that. It's like a dessert whiskey. You know, I'm getting pears, I'm getting honey, I'm getting pistachios. Almost kind of like a baklava type dessert. That kind of sweetness and honeyed, and what an unusual whiskey. Yeah, baklava. Definitely. That kind of honeyedness and the fruit and the nuts, but sweet nuts and sweetness to it as well. That's really nice. Really unusual, but really, really nice. It's a definite dessert whiskey as well. I'd love to try this with some baklava. I bet that's a perfect combination. I bet that works really, really well with it. And I don't think it needs water. I really don't. I'd say that because there's only a tiny wee bit left. But in all honesty, I think water would actually knock everything out of that. It doesn't taste fiery. It doesn't taste like 50%. 43 maybe. But the sweetness and the honeyedness, I think, overcomes what alcohol burn there would be at that higher percentage. It really doesn't need water at all. I'm not going to add any to that last bit. I don't think it needs it. I think the flavours that are there are prominent and strong enough that any sort of dilution is going to knock it back. I think it's bang on. I think they've got a really, really good percentage level there. What a strange but very, very tasty whiskey indeed. I have yet to find a bad Douglas Lang bottling, it has to be said. They can do no wrong in my book. Every single whiskey they do is, at its worst, good. And at its best, unbelievably good. But I have yet to find a poor, duff, badly picked whiskey from Douglas Lang. They're absolutely brilliant. And, you know, yes, that's not to say that every single one they do is guaranteed will knock your socks off. But if you're in a whiskey shop, or if you're looking online and you're looking to try something slightly different and you see Douglas Lang on the label, it's one of their bottlings, you've got a very, very good chance of getting something excellent. Chris, thank you for that. I can still taste it now as well. It's become more nutty, but again, it's pistachios. But that honeyedness is there now. And this is what, 30 seconds, a minute after I took the last sip? Lovely and warming as well. Really, really nice. Chris, Lindsay, thank you very much for that. Very unusual, but well worth it. Really, really good. I hope you've got a fair bit left. Right. I still have some space left on my hard drive, which is good. So I shall do some editing, and I shall see you in the next one. Cheers.